pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin the meeting with a moment of silence. This meeting is being recorded and televised by the local cable company. I'd like a motion to approve bill and payroll warrants.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. A motion to accept correspondence in the read file.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Public forum. Now is the time for someone to speak on a matter that's not on the agenda. Approval of meeting minutes, open session, January 21st, 2020.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And the open session on February 25th, 2020.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Town administrator's report will be first. And the first item on the agenda, I've asked Frank to go over our coronavirus information. We get information from all over the place. I think Frank said he was in 3 conference calls today. The police chief and the schools and the fire chief put out a public relations information letter yesterday. They change almost daily. Our Board of Health has put some information on their link on the website, on the town website. It occurred to me that we ought to make it as simple as possible for our citizens to be up to date and on both prevention and treatment protocols, and also latest information that might be valuable to them or important to them. So I asked Frank to work on that with Josh, the IT guy, and with the Board of Health. It makes sense to me that the Board of Health be the place where the citizens of the town know to go for information on the coronavirus thing. So that will be the place. Go to the town website, go to the Board of Health link, and any information that's relevant will be there in a single place, and there'll be some consistency to all of the different reportings. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Frank. But
just that there's so much information out there that's sort of right, but nobody agrees. I went through Johns Hopkins, the Center for System Sciences, and the Centers for Disease Control. Presumably the CDC would be the ultimate authority for our information, and everyone has different counts, different numbers, different trends. The bottom line is people have to exercise common sense. What we're doing in the town hall is morning and afternoon, we are cleaning all of the surfaces, the handrails, the bathrooms, anywhere that people come in contact. But the best thing people can do is avoid being in crowds and wash their hands 20 seconds at a time, as frequently as necessary when they come in contact with people. That's our only line of defense. This is a flu. Like any other one, it just seems to be moving more quickly than what we've seen in the past. The basic information is available on the website if you go to the Board of Health and then select coronavirus, but you have to look for it. So we're going to put up another page. It's just very simple. Click here for recommendations on keeping healthy.
and
hopefully that'll
there'll be
work.
some simple info sheets maybe placed in places like the library or the Council of Aging,
Right.
public places for people that don't have access to the internet or ready access.
We will take care of that.
Okay.
I had a question about this. Actually, someone reached out to me to ask if a town employee were exposed or potentially exposed and had to self-quarantine, would they be burning through their sick time, or would the board have the ability to waive any sick time used in a quarantine scenario if they weren't able to work from
I
home?
would say they would burn through their sick time, but I don't necessarily think we'd automatically cut them off if they burn through it. I mean, that's what sick time is.
Right.
I don't think we'd leave anyone hanging out there, and that's something we'd have to address as a board in subsequent meetings. But it's really important that if people suspect they're coming down with the virus, flu or otherwise, they stay home, because it's not going to help anyone else if they're here. It's not going to help the public. I mean, we talked about scenarios where we could operate remotely. How do you collect taxes remotely? How do you deal with permit applications remotely? Although we are working on an online system. So common sense, stay away. The unique thing of this virus is that you don't get a runny nose. Typically, when you get a cold or a virus, you have a runny nose, you have congestion. In this, you have a dry hacking cough and no runny nose. So pay attention to that. But if you're feeling ill at all, stay home.
Yeah, there's a question I haven't received an answer yet for. I received an email from the president of Massasoit that went out to all college personnel and students, and it talked about a system that their attorneys are suggesting they set up for people to report, both students, faculty, and staff, if they are planning to travel to certain countries or if they have been at certain places. In other words, to report if they have been placed in any kind of danger of contracting it.
And that would be helpful to us so that people can self-quarantine, and we can identify whether
Right.
we
So
have
I
additional
don't
people
know
at
if
risk.
it's
I think
how
we can
wieldy it
figure
would
out
be or
some
unwieldy
way
for
to
us to
do
do
it,
that.
even if it's an email process updated.
Okay.
So I'll work on that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. The rest is yours.
Use of Town Hall Auditorium. It appears that the talent program is rolling around at the Conley, and in the past, we've permitted them to use the auditorium stage to practice their routines. They've asked to do that again in March and April, and as long as it doesn't conflict with other events, I'm saying let's go ahead and do it. We'll provide them with access. I think they're planning on coming at 3:30 each of the days, so the hall will be open when they get here. All the parents have to do is make sure that they all leave and the doors will lock behind them. If they need access on a night to come in, then I'll provide them with electronic access.
Okay.
The other item, and this is more of an informational piece, as everyone here knows, the recreation director resigned a month ago, and we began a process for selecting a new director. Unfortunately, the Recreation Commission operates with both appointed members and what I would define as a ad hoc member. It's an associate member under the vote of town meeting that created the Recreation Commission. The town gave the Recreation the ability to appoint associate members who have no voting rights or authority to operate on behalf of the Recreation Commission. We met a couple of weeks ago and selected candidates for interview. The interviews occurred last Monday. However, the meeting we had previously only had 2 of the 5 or 2 of the 4 appointed members. So while a screening committee does not have to have a quorum of members, in an effort to ensure that we're not on the wrong side of the open meeting law, we are going to reopen that process, not for advertising, but rather for interviewing those people who weren't interviewed so that they can make a appropriate selection. So, Mayor Cooper on that. I should have stopped that when it happened. That's it for
Okay.
my report.
Budget review.
You haven't...
Before that, we have to acknowledge
Yes.
Mr. Evans' attire tonight. And I apologize for not wearing my St. Patrick's Day tie. My mother, is, God rest her soul, is probably swearing at me right now. It's
Just doing my best.
way to go.
Very party-like. You have in front of you draft warrants, and I emphasize the word draft. We know there are at least one or two items missing from that will be updated before you finally vote the warrant. But I will be distributing this to the Finance Committee. There is also, we are preparing for a warrant for the special town meeting, so I will ask that the board vote tonight to open the special. I already have 4 articles pending for it, and one of them is an article relating to the Regional School Committee agreement. I felt it would be more appropriate to have that on this fiscal year's vote than next. So that will be on that warrant as well. And there are some current year issues that we're going to have to address in the special. But a brief picture of this is I've analyzed the revenue and the requests, and as long as we exercise some common sense and practical limitations, this year's budget should be manageable. And it will be an opportunity for us to define the bigger issues that we'll be facing in the FY22 budget, where we're going to have a full-blown capital plan in requesting the funding for that, as well as the schools.
Question.
Yes.
As you speak of that budget, does that take into account any agreements between Whitman and Hanson that are ongoing?
The current budget reflects the assessment as it is planned under the statutory method. There is some room for movement if we find a need to take a second look at some of those things. Not a lot, but there's some room. The important thing is that we're talking, we have a dialogue, and we're going to try to find an effective way to be good partners. But it all boils down, I had a conversation yesterday when I was picking up one of the kids with one of the school crossing guards who really didn't understand what was going on. I said, I'll make this as simple as I can. Prior to 1992, state aid was limited. As a result of a lawsuit, Chapter 70 became a process by which communities in need would get additional support above and beyond communities who weren't in need. And the index for that was to identify their ability to raise revenue and their tax base. And with towns that are not regionalized, it happens automatically. The Chapter 70 that a town like Abington gets is based solely on those parameters. When you get into a regional school district, you have different communities with different abilities. So the statutory method allocates the portion of Chapter 70 that should go to each community based on their need. Once that's settled, the rest of the budget is divvied up based on whatever your agreement method is. In our case, student population. So this half of the budget is based on financial demographics. This half of the budget is based on how many students each town has. And when you put it together, that's what you come up with. She seemed to be satisfied with that answer, and I know it's difficult for people to come to grips with, particularly if you're on the side that's getting hit with a bill. but that's the process.
Thank you. Is that,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
it's fine? Okay.
You need a motion to open the special?
I would like one. That would be good.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
We'll
Closing
close the last working day of the month.
of March.
Yes. Sorry, the last Friday of the month before the end of the month, so that we have a week to look at. Let me get a calendar.
27?
March 27th, thank you.
So the special, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Policies and procedures. Vote to authorize the fire chief and police chief.
We needed to vote the,
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't we just vote it?
I don't think
It
so.
was
We
a
made the
motion, but
motion
we
in
didn't
second.
take a vote.
I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote to authorize the fire chief and police chief to apply for and accept grants up to $25,000, provided the matching funds where required have been appropriated, and acceptance of grants do not require subsequent appropriations as a condition of said grant, and further that no additional personnel are required as a condition of acceptance. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a
Second.
second? Is there any discussion, questions?
The reason for this is occasionally grants come up that aren't huge grants, but they're quick opportunities. And the normal grant process is it comes through the Board of Selectmen's office. So this gives them the ability to identify and go after grants that are helpful to their operations without creating a whole new layer of paperwork.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
New business, take action to renew the taxi livery license and taxi livery driver's certificate for Eric Young, doing business as Sleep Near Transportation, 8 Denica Drive, for the period April 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2021, subject to the payment of license fees and the submittal of all required renewal documents.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote to declare the following as surplus. 2 2008 Ford Taurus unmarked detective cars, 1 2004 Ford Crown Victoria police vehicle, 1 2011 Ford Crown Victoria police vehicle. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Question.
Yes.
What's the process?
Well,
to
at
which
least a
that-
couple of these are going to be torn apart by the fire chief. But if they have value, salvage value, they will be auctioned.
Auction. Okay.
Is there a motion? There was?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Act on the request of John Graham on behalf of the Whitman Baseball and Softball Association to conduct its opening day parade on Saturday, April 11th, 2020, beginning at 9 a.m. with a rain date of April 18th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Vote to appoint Ronald R. Rock to the position of voting member of the Recreation Commission through June 30th, 2020, in order to fill an existing vacancy. If approved, vote to rescind the appointment of Ronald R. Rock from the position of non-voting member of the Recreation Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So that vote will take care of both of those things.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is to designate members of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District Regional Agreement Review Committee. We've been asked to appoint the town manager, a selectman, and a member of the finance committee to that committee that's going to be reviewing the regional agreement. And we will be appointing, we can do this by vote, or yeah, we can do it by vote. I'd like a motion to appoint Justin as the select person, Rich Anderson as the finance committee member, and Frank as the who is the town manager.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Question on that. Do we also have a citizen at large to appoint?
Oh,
Thank you.
gee, I forgot about it. I'd like to
Chris
nominate
George
Chris
is-
George. He has asked to be the member and be a great addition to that team.
Motion to amend.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Chris?
Yep.
All right, second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's not really an amendment, it's a, we did it in two
An
motions.
addition.
We did it in two motions. So how could I
We
forget?
got it right.
Discuss thanks for reminding me of that,
no problem.
jeez. Discuss the request for $1 million appropriation for the Whitman Middle School feasibility study. Frank?
Okay, several weeks ago, the Budget Override Evaluation Committee met and discussed the need to appropriate money for a feasibility study for the middle school. At the time, the suggested number was $700,000. Last week, we received a draft article from the school committee for $1 million for the feasibility study. I had a discussion with Michelle Lindberg, and then I'm going to say this. It was either early this morning or yesterday afternoon, I had a conversation with the facilities director in East Sandlin. And there's a question mark about what the number should be. It could be 800, could be $1 million. The MSBA recommends the $1 million because they want to be conservative and make sure you don't make an appropriation and then not have enough to award the proposal. This proposal is actually a soup to nuts assessment of our educational needs for facilities with a recommendation either to renovate or to replace the middle school, and the likelihood is it's going to lean toward replacing it. I did make some calls. I spoke to the city of Weymouth. They have just recently began working on a new middle school, the Chapman Middle School. Interesting project. They renovated the gym. It's in great shape. They're keeping it and tearing the rest of the building down and building a new school attached to the gym. That project, they came up with $1 million for the feasibility study. Bridgewater has just begun a feasibility study on a pre-K to 2 building. They expect they're going to spend between $800,000 and $850,000 for the pre-K to 2. Easton, also a pre-K to 2, appropriated $1 million, have spent $800,000 plus on that, and they're going to build a $95 million school with a $55 million bill attached to it. It is important that whatever we come up with, it be presented as accurately as we can to the public, because this is phase one of a significant commitment. Once we do the feasibility study, the next step is to go to construction and borrow money. And it's likely that this project is going to be in the $70+ million range. It is also likely, because it's a middle school, it's going to have a little more than the PK to 2 buildings. So my guess is it's going to be closer. It may be 800, but it's going to be closer to 900 than 800. When it was 700, we opted to use free cash to pay for it. Wasn't my choice, but it was my vote. Now looking that that number has risen, I personally feel it's important to present to the public from a funding standpoint on something that's going to represent a lot of money. So rather than just the approval of a town meeting, I think we should present it on a ballot. So we're not going to make that decision tonight. I'm just putting it out there. I'm going to talk to the Capital Committee on Thursday. I'm going to talk to the Finance Committee next Tuesday. I'm going to let those people who felt very strongly about doing it with free cash know that we're going to have these conversations so that they can join in on this discussion. I don't want to sideline anyone on this process, but if we choose to go with a $1 million either a capital exclusion, which requires a vote, or a debt exclusion. The impact for each of, I would recommend that it be a 2-year exclusion. The impact each year to the average taxpayer would be $99. In year 1, $99. In year 2, $188 total.
And that leaves out the free cash part.
It preserves the free cash that I think is going to be needed for other capital needs, including a feasibility study for a DPW. And I think it's a responsible way to pay for it. I'm not thrilled about looking for a vote either in May or November for this when we know next year we're going to be looking to adjust our operating budget. But I think it's the responsible thing to do. If we don't have voter support, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to have to go back to the drawing table. But if we think we do and go to a town meeting, get the money, and then it's rejected, our SOI is gone, and we start all over again, and we've just blown $1 million.
Right.
So it really has to be looked at.
How long do these studies take typically?
6 to 8 months. Well, really about 5 months, and then the review and all the other stuff that goes with it comes. They have to do a student population projection. They have to design a building, so they have to come up with 2 plans, one to renovate, one to build, and all of that has to be done before we go to MSBA for support. And at that point, we'll have a basic design, and we'll also have an estimated cost. And that's when the decisions are made. School buildings today are very expensive. The lowest I've seen so far in the last 4 projects I've looked at is $70 million. And we'll get somewhere between 38 and 40% of that covered by the MSBA. The rest we're going to have to pay for. So I think we need to be sure that the voters that turn out at the voting booth are as supportive of this as the voters that come to a town meeting.
Agreed.
They're not going to be happy to hear that, but I think that's practical.
We did a capital improvement plan study with the Collins Center last year. Their recommendation was any capital project over $100,000 should be debt financed. Now, this is significantly higher than that number, so I don't.
Now, we also can finance, and I'm going to say this, but I'm not suggesting it, we can finance within the levy limit. We can borrow the money and pay it out over 3 or 4 years by going to town meeting. But that still doesn't tell us where we stand with the community at large when it comes to that big building project. And that project will come long before we finish paying for this. Now, if we're successful, a portion of the money that we spend on the feasibility study is reimbursable if we follow the process. So again, my only purpose tonight is putting it out there so that people understand what's on the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
There's no need for an executive session tonight. I found out right before the meeting from Frank, however, that the school committee meeting that was scheduled for tomorrow evening is being postponed until Thursday, in case people don't know, because the boys are playing basketball at the TD Garden tomorrow night, semifinals, I believe, in the state basketball tournament. So that school committee meeting tomorrow night, when they were going to be voting a budget, if I'm correct, will be postponed until Thursday night. So a motion to adjourn will be in order.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're gone.